Hey, it's Boo Ray Perry from Tampa, Florida, and today we're going to talk about the new Fuji X-S20 and try and figure out who is this camera for, and is this camera the right camera for you? All right, before we get started, don't forget to follow me on Instagram. Also, I have a page, a group, I should say, on Facebook called Pro Photo Talk with Boo Ray Perry. Join that group as well. Don't forget that I have all of my gear listed online. You can go there and see all the gear I carry, both my professional Fuji gear and my vacation personal Fuji gear that I use with my Fuji X100V. And if you click one of those links and you buy something, it helps me to support this channel, and I really do appreciate that. Also, of course, I have a merchandise thing right below this video. You'll see my stuff, Camera Nerd. This, by the way, is a limited edition Camera Nerd mug because this is the first mug I ordered and I forgot to put Camera Nerd on the back of it. So if you order the Camera Nerd mug, it's got Camera Nerd on both sides. This is a one-of-a-kind limited edition, so I'm going to be holding on to this for 10 years and then selling it for $1 million. So you have that to look forward to. All right, let's talk about the Fuji X-S20. They just announced this a couple of days ago, and I'm going to be honest, I really didn't pay much attention to the XS10. You know, it's hard to keep up with all of the cameras from all the manufacturers. You know, I do a pretty good job with Fuji because I'm a Fuji shooter, and I kind of pay attention to Canon because I used to shoot Canon. But then when you start throwing in all the other manufacturers, I can't keep track of them all. But with this camera, the new one, the S20, I really kind of set up and paid attention to this camera because I feel like Fuji is doing something here that I am a big fan of when it comes to manufacturers of anything really. And that is that they are building a camera that is specifically for a specific type of user, and they are piling everything into that camera that they can to really make it fit that mold. Right? So let's just take a look at some of the stats on the Fuji X-S20 versus the XS10, and I've got them written here in front of me, so if I look away from a second, it's because I don't want to mess up these statistics. Now, the things that the two cameras have in common, the S10 and the S20, they have the same sensor, and it's the 26 megapixel sensor. It's the same sensor that's in the Fuji X100V and in the X-T3 and back and so forth. It also was in the X-T4. Yeah. So this is the same sensor that was in the X-T4 and the X Pro. This was the sensor that was in every Fuji camera for the last few years until they came out with the new 40 megapixel sensor that they put into the X-H2 and the X-T5, as well as the new sensor that they put into the X-H2S. So now they have two sensors that they're using. But it used to be it was just like one sensor all the time. It was this 26 megapixel sensor. This is a fantastic sensor. Used this professionally for years, and it's fantastic. So you're fine with the same sensor that you had before. It's got the same ISO range, 160 to 12,800, same as before, same sensor, of course it does. It's got the same number of autofocus points, anywhere from 117 to 425. It's got the same frame speed, 20 frames per second with the electronic shutter. It's got a 14,000 of a second maximum shutter speed, and it's got the same EVF. So your viewfinder is the same as you saw on the S10 if you're buying the S20. Now, let's talk about the differences, because this is what's great. One of the things I really don't like is when they come out with a new camera and they just change like one or two things, and you're like, you know, I want big changes when I buy a new model. If I have the old model, I want a really good reason to upgrade to the new model, and man, boy, did they do it with this camera. If you are an XS10 user, you have absolutely got to be looking at the S20 and going, wow, you know, I think I might like to upgrade to the S20. So let's go down the list and take a look at the changes in this camera. First of all, it's got the newest processor. So even though it's got the same sensor that the old camera had, it's got the newest processor, the same processor that's going into the X-T5 and the X-H2. So you're going to do more with the old sensor and the newest processor. That's a given. It's got better autofocus features. Now it can recognize animals, it can recognize vehicles, and your eye focus should be faster as well. It's got 7 stops of image stabilization, in-body image stabilization, IBIS. It's got 7 stops of IBIS, whereas the S10 only has 6 stops of IBIS.
It's got a bigger battery. This is a big deal. It's got a bigger battery. The old battery was the small battery, the same one that's in the V over there, the V100. It's now got the big battery, the same battery that they use in the XT4, XT5, the same battery they use in the XH2. And this is a huge upgrade on this camera, because before, what was the maximum number of shots that you could get with that battery? 325 frames, that's about right. That's the experience I've had. About 325 frames with the old battery, and now you can get 750. So they have literally doubled the frame count on one battery. That's huge. Really a huge, huge upgrade. And it makes me wonder if we're going to see that happen. I don't know how they would do it, but it makes me wonder if we might see them try and do that with the X100V, with the next version. I don't see how you can put that big battery in the X100V without making the cameras, shape everything just dramatically different, and I think people would really push back against that. But I think that most people will agree that 325 frames with one battery is just simply not enough. So it'd be great if they could do something along those lines. So this is a big upgrade. The camera itself, because of the new battery, is going to be wider. It's 1.7 millimeters wider, and it is 26 grams heavier because of the big battery. But the grip is also a little bit bigger because of the big battery. It's got a new film sim. It's got nostalgic negative film sim, which wasn't in the old camera. It's got a built-in 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, which was not in the old camera. It's got a 10 gigabytes per second write speed now to the card. There's only one card in this camera, same with the S10, but the write speed has doubled. It's now 10 gig instead of 5 gig. So that's a pretty big upgrade. It can be used as a webcam right out of the box. It's designed to be used as a webcam, like plug and play, basically. You don't have to download special software and everything in order to get this to use as a webcam. And the buffer is much bigger. Whereas before, you could only get 17 RAW files at full size in the buffer. Now you can get, wait for it, 79 RAW files. Yeah, from 17 to 79 RAW files in the buffer on the new camera. So these are significant upgrades. Doubling the battery size, right? Quadrupling or more the buffer size. Webcam out of the box. There's a lot of great new features that are added to this camera, but it's the video features that are really going to make people stand up. So here's what they've done with the video to make the video different. They have something now called product priority. So if you're using this camera to show a product, like I do right on this show. So like I'm showing a product, I'm like, oh hey, this is you should buy this great fantastic mug, and then you hold it up. The camera will refocus onto the product. When you put it in front of the camera automatically will refocus on the product and then go back to your face when you move it away. So this is like a really niche, really dialing in, like this is for a specific type of user, right? I don't know that I've ever even seen this. I know I haven't seen this on another Fuji camera. So I don't know if this sort of mode even exists. And it's right on the top dial of the camera. It's built, it's not like buried somewhere in the menu system. It shoots 6K video at 30 frames per second. The old one did not shoot 6K video. It only shot 4K video at 30. The new one, it will shoot 6K video at 30. It will shoot 4K video at 60 frames per second. That's a huge upgrade in your video. What else? 12-bit RAW via the HDMI port. It's got F-Log 2 curve, and it's 13 stops instead of 12 with the XS10. To be honest, I don't even know what that means because I'm not really a video guy. But if you are, I'm guessing that you know what that means. The old camera had a 30-minute recording cap, not the new camera. The new camera can take a cooling fan attachment that goes onto the camera and increases your time even more. They say, I think that you can get something like 79 minutes at 4K 60 with the cooling fan. If you know, if I'm wrong about that, put it down in the comments and let me know. It's got a new setting on the main dial called Vlog or Vlog, and it's right there on the main dial. And if you set the main dial to Vlog, then it changes your screen, which is, by the way, a flippy screen, flips around so you can see it. It changes your screen so that it's easier for you to change the settings on the camera from the screen. This is specifically made for people who are using this camera as a vlogging camera. The other major change in the S20 versus the S10 is the price. The S10 goes for about $1,000 and the S20 goes for about $1,300. Now that's nothing to shake a stick at. That's a 30% increase in the cost of the camera. So is it worth $300 more? 30% more? And it's different when you say it that way, right? Because if you say something's 30% more, that seems like a lot. If you say it's $300 more, that may not be a lot. It really depends on, where you are with your money. So you use which one of those numbers is the one that's most significant to you. But it's a $300 increase if you want to buy this camera. Now, I can tell you that if I was looking to buy one of these cameras for $300, I absolutely would buy the S20 because I think the battery alone, just the battery alone would be worth the extra $300. I know that may seem like a lot, but yeah. Give me double the number of pictures. Give me 750 frames. Sure. And for video, you're going to have the same problem. Absolutely. So to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. If you're think about getting one of these cameras, you got to get the S20 because the $300 is nothing. When you're going to get the battery, you're going to get 6K video. You're going to get 60 frames per second on 4K video. You're going to get the vlog mode. You're going to get better autofocus. You're going to get better tracking. You're going to get the newest processor. Yeah, it's really a no-brainer. And I love that because so many times they come out with cameras and it's really a decision about whether or not it's worth the upgrade. The X-T3 to the X-T4 was a little bit of that. There are people who still love the X-T3 and didn't really want to go to the X-T4. They didn't like the screen. But in this case, I find it hard-pressed that anyone could make a really good argument for why you should get the X-S10 instead of the X-S20. So that's nice to get out of the way. But then we get to, who is this camera for? And this is what I think is really cool about this camera and what Fuji is doing here, because if you've been listening to all these specs I've been talking about, it should be painfully obvious who this camera is for. And this camera is for vloggers. This camera is for the person who is going to set up a home studio and make videos for YouTube, or the person who makes videos out and about when they're traveling, or they have a travel vlog or whatever. This is a vlogger's camera, and I really love that Fuji is doing this. I love that they're like, you know what? We're going to make a vlog camera. Because it's so frustrating when I shot Canon, right? It was like, well, the 5D is great, but there's also the 60 and the 70, and then I think it was the 8D, and then there's the 1D, and then there's the 5D Mark II, 3, and 4, and the 4S. And it just got to the point where it was, if you were coming into the system, trying to figure out what camera to buy was just a nightmare because the differences in the cameras would be so small. Sometimes, I'm not sure, should I get APS-C? Should I get full frame? Should I get, what should I be getting? And so I really like it when a company has fewer products, but each product is distinctively aimed at a particular market. And Fuji seems to be doing that better than some of the other companies. When you look at Fuji's lines and you look at their cameras, you can tell this camera is for this thing. And so when someone comes to me and says, what camera should I buy? I like to be able to say, what do you want to do with it? Well, I'm a full-time working pro, and I'm thinking about switching to Fuji. Great, you want to get the XH2. I'm a full-time working pro cinematographer, and I want to go to Fuji. You want the XH2S. I'm a pro or a pro wannabe. I'm at that level. I work a lot with my camera, and I really love the styling of Fuji. Well, then you want the X-T5. I want something small to carry on vacation. You want the XE4 or you want the X100V. It's very easy to pick out the camera and the niche that it goes to. And then the final niche is, I want a camera that's not like any other camera anywhere. Then you want the X Pro. The X Pro is just like, it's just a weird camera. It's cool, but it's weird. And so I love that Fuji now has this camera where they're like, this is a vlogging camera, people. That's what this camera is made for. Listen, stills, great. It's going to rock the stills. But if you need a camera for vlogging, this is the camera for you. And if you don't need a camera for vlogging, you probably don't need to really be looking at this camera when we've got the X-T30 and the X-T32 available. So the X-T32, that's the camera that I recommend to somebody when they say, oh, you know, I'm a hobbyist. I want a small camera to carry around, take pictures with. I'm like, the X-T30. That's the line you want to look at. But if they said video, I'm like, no, no, no. The X-S20 is the one that you want. So I really love this because it makes my job easier, you know, when people want to talk about what Fuji camera that they should get. But I just like when you are definitive about your stuff. There was a guy in America years ago, and if you're watching this from someplace else, you won't know this guy, but way back in the 90s, there was a guy named Ross Perot. And Ross Perot is like a billionaire from Texas. And Ross Perot ran for president. And he was funny. He had this high-pitched voice. Ross used to come. I was a radio station disc jockey at the time, and Ross would come to the station and do a show there. And and Ross was always like, you know, it's just not right. It's just not right. Dana Carvey used to mimic him on Saturday Night Live all the time. But one of the stories I always loved about Ross was that at some point he got put on the board of directors for like Bic, for like the pen company. And no, I'm sorry, I screwed that up. He got put on the board of directors for a car company, like General Motors, I think it was. And he wasn't on the board for long because he kept irritating everybody because he kept saying, why are y'all building so many different cars? I don't understand why you're building so many different models. You can't tell them apart. You don't need to build one car and make it the best car you can buy. And he would say, like for instance, with pens, and that's why I thought pens. He would say, all you need is one ballpoint pen, the best ballpoint pen you can buy. If you steal that ballpoint pen, everybody's going to buy it. And that was his philosophy, and I'm a big fan of that philosophy. And so I really like that Fuji is taking steps here to isolate this camera and make it very specific to a need. And right now, I mean, I don't know a lot about all the other cameras on the market, but from what I've read, if you want a vlogging camera, the new Fuji X-S20, that's the camera for you. The price point's a little high. Because when I think about a camera just for vlogging, I think $1,000 and under. And $1,300, that's a bit expensive. I mean, I don't know, what's the X-T5 cost right now? Like $1,500 or less? I mean, you're getting up into XH2, X-T5 numbers when you start talking about $1,300. But if you're getting the best vlog camera and the best size, the best ergonomics, access to all the Fuji lenses, maybe it's worth it. You know, maybe it's worth it. Maybe it's the camera that you start off with a cheaper vlog camera, but what you really want to do is get your channel up to the point where you can afford this better camera. I'm just saying, I'm really impressed with this camera. I never really paid much attention to the S10 line, but now with the S20, I'm like, yeah, you guys did a great job. You guys nailed this. So here's what I want you to do. Down in the comments, especially if you're a video person, tell me what I'm missing here, because I'm not a real big video. I'm using a webcam for this channel. because I didn't want to have to set a camera up all the time. Now it's a 4K webcam, but still. So talk to me in the comments about this camera, your opinion of this camera, what maybe they're missing on this compared to some of the other cameras that are out there, because I would like to learn more about this, and so I'm counting on you, my faithful video people, to come in and give me a little bit of education in the comments. All right, so that's it. I think it's a great camera. I think the price point is on par for what you get, although I do think it's a little bit high for what most people are usually prepared to pay for this type of camera, for a vlogging camera, but I do think you get your money's worth. I think that you absolutely are getting $300 worth of upgrades if you go from the S10 to the X20. So yeah, good job, Fuji, and I'm excited to see what's next. All right, stick around. I'll be back soon.